Papadopoulos on today's News Talk, The Pulse.
Welcome back. Lots of chat in the chat. Mark and Jason Olborn would be good, says Mogden, in response to a question by Just a Bloke. Just a Bloke says, a wonderful lively start to Tuesday morning from a man whose energy and excitability know no bounds. Lembit, please have Mark on more often. And Mike, please invite Mark back as a presenter. His time is now. Well, no, the less he is as a presenter, the more he can be on my show. He is absolutely great value. Full of beans, 5 hours ahead of where I am. So he'll be off to lunch now. And we've got to watch how much he drinks because, of non-alcoholic, anything, because he can't find a toilet. Chris said, agree, he should be the next presenter brought back. Yes, well, absolutely great value he is. But he's flying the flag for common sense at COP29. Chris says, they go to show off all their latest private jets there. Junket word of the day right here, says Just a Bloke. And Chris says, we are going to block Trump from the White House. Democrats' plan exposed. Redacted news. That's interesting. Well, joining me now is on that very subject is Marcus Papadopoulos, never knowingly undersold when it comes to free speech. Marcus, how are you doing? And thanks for coming back to review Trump's progress 1 week in.
Allow me to say, first of all, Lembit, that the American people voted and voted decisively to reject the pro-war, woke, paedophilic and satanic agenda that the American establishment has imposed on the American people. The same pro-war, woke, paedophilic and satanic agenda that the British establishment is imposing on the British people. What lies before America now is a real opportunity for America to be cleansed of what I can only describe as evil. And I use the word evil in a biblical sense. With Trump in the White House and with Trump controlling both the Senate and the House of Representatives, this is a major opportunity to reverse the horrific damage which has been inflicted on American society. And I think that people need to be aware that Trump will not only go to war with the aforementioned forces, such as the movement to normalize paedophilia by rebranding it as minor attracted people, but also he must lay a foundation upon which his successors can continue the war, because this damage which has been inflicted on American society has been ongoing for decades. So Trump will not be able to win this war in 4 years. That is why I say this is only the beginning. And also on top of that, yes, beating Harris was going to be a very major battle. Why? Because the American establishment were backing her. She was beholden to the American establishment. She is a useful idiot of the American establishment. But here lies now the biggest battle before Trump, because he will now come up against the American establishment and they will use all of their tentacles, all of the powers that they have to destroy him and to destroy his presidency. They will use the media. They will use elements in his own party, such as the leadership of the Republican Party. They will use the courts. They will use the secret police, the FBI. They will use the police. They will use academia and so on to destroy him. But the Trump and the Republicans have a mandate, and a very powerful mandate from the American people. The American people elected Trump overwhelmingly on the basis of putting American industry first, putting American jobs first, no longer sending money overseas, no longer starting wars overseas, no longer carrying out coups abroad. ending immigration, deporting each and every illegal immigrant in America, stopping the attacks on Christianity, stopping the attacks on the white race, and stopping the attacks on what it is to be American.
That's a strongly worded and damning indictment of the American and, to an extent, the British establishment, Marcus. Some would say that Donald Trump, I have to say, my opinion is very sympathetic to yours. That's my view. We can maybe test some of the details in a minute. But some would say the enormity of the task that Donald Trump therefore has, if your analysis is correct, is so great that the establishment can bottle him up, can thwart him. And the motivations, if your analysis is correct, to suppress what he wants to drain from the swamp are so, and exposing that drain swamp, are so profound that he himself is in material danger, because if he can show those networks of self-interest, of militarism, of minor attracted people and all of that, that will be an absolute earthquake of the greatest scale, the like of which, for example, San Francisco has never experienced. Vested interest could stop him in his tracks.
History teaches us that all is impermanent. Anything is possible. Who would have thought over 100 years ago that the Tsarist Empire would collapse? Who would have thought that the Habsburg Empire would collapse? The Ottoman Empire would collapse? I am very well aware of the enormity of the situation which is before Trump and his administration. It's not simply a case of Trump versus the Trump versus the establishment. It's a matter of Trump and his administration versus the establishment, but also the American people versus the establishment. As I said previously, this will take many, many years to defeat. America will not be cleansed in 4 years. America will not be cleansed in 8 years, but hopefully this will mark the beginning. And Lembit, the American people are not like the British people. I will unsay one word of criticism which I have made about the average Briton over many, many years. People who are familiar with me are quite aware of how scathing I am of the average British person. The average British person failed to defend their national identity. They failed to defend their cultural and spiritual values. Instead, they traded their culture, their religion, Christianity, for things like celebrity culture, reality television, Netflix, and so on and so on. The American people, whilst they have taken enormous hits over many years from the establishment, largely speaking, they are still a very pious people. They are still a very patriotic people. They are still a very strong-willed and a very tough people. And I was in Florida this summer attending a wedding, and I spoke with numerous people of numerous backgrounds, and it was very clear to me that they are prepared to go to any lengths to defeat what I said can only be described as evil. So it is Trump, it is his administration, and it is the American people, tens of millions of them, who will now face off against the establishment. This will be a long, protracted, brutal, bitter war, but it has to start from somewhere. The Tsarist Empire didn't collapse in 1917. The problems began long before that, the problems began for the Ottomans and the Habsburgs long before the Great War. So this is a beginning, and this is a golden opportunity.
You're also referencing the British establishment, an establishment we might remember that put people in prison for saying some ill-advised things on internet and for protesting last summer, but who allowed Hugh Edwards, a prolific user of illegal paedophile sexual material, to walk free with a suspended sentence. An establishment where the Prime Minister himself failed to press any charges whatever against Jimmy Savile, who worked for the state broadcaster and went to his death, never facing court. I suspect from what you said, and let's get this on the table, you feel that the Anglo-American axis is one of evil when it comes to looking at the negative elements of the establishment that you described before, Marcus.
It most certainly is evil. The American establishment and the British establishment are one entity. That must not be forgotten. It's not just their mindset, it is their policies, it is their agenda, and it is their methods. So, if there is a rupture to the American establishment, then that will be felt by the British establishment. And let me make it very clear. When I say the British establishment, I don't mean the likes of Starmer or Sunak or Badenoch or Khan. These are puppets. These are useful idiots. No. When I say the British establishment, I mean the monarchy, the aristocracy, the banking elites, the financial elites, the media barons, the intelligence chiefs and the military chiefs and Zionists. That is what I mean by the British establishment. And the British establishment is the most criminal, the most violent, the most sadistic, the most devious, the most cunning, and the most intelligent of all establishments in the world. They have been in power ever since 1066. That is why I say they are the most intelligent, they are the most dangerous in the world. But if the system collapses in America, then that will be felt by them in Britain. And that could be the salvation for the British people. The British people, Lembit, regrettably, and I say this painfully, cannot liberate themselves. Yes, most Britons have now woken up, but it's one thing to acquire knowledge. What are they going to do with that knowledge? So, again, if it collapses in America or if it starts to weaken in America, then the British establishment, in my opinion, will be forced to start the process of retreating, of pulling back from this evil agenda. But again, only in America can salvation be found for the British people. And I don't use the word Britain anymore, Lembit, because this is not Britain. There is nothing remotely British about this island any longer, but there is something called the British people, and I mean the British people. I don't mean new definitions for the British people. I mean the British people. Trump is not perfect. Do I think Trump is a savior? No, I don't, but I do think he can lay a foundation for the initial weakening of the American establishment and then the eventual cleansing of the American establishment.
That's a big statement, and obviously we'll be able to see how that progresses. 2 attempts on his life that we know of, maybe 3, but 2 anyway during the run-up to the election itself. Just got a couple of minutes left. If you wanted to make a prediction about what Donald Trump will do first after his inauguration, which is still to happen, of course, on the 20th of January. He's not the president yet. What do you think will be his first steps? And do you think he will be able to slay this dragon?
I believe his first steps will include restoring and securing the border between America and Mexico, beginning to deport illegal immigrants, preventing men from taking part in women's sporting competitions, preventing men from using women's toilets, stopping the teaching of the critical race theory, stopping this millions of dollars going to governments such as the Ukrainian one. Regrettably, there will be no stop in money going to Israel. But again, as I said, Trump is not perfect. He will start to return more powers to the states in America. And on top of that, he will go to war with the numerous elements which make up woke, such as Antifa and BLM, which are highly violent movements and organizations. And also, he will start putting American jobs and American industry first. I am delighted by how he has appointed Tom Homan to oversee immigration in America, restoring the border with Mexico, securing the border with Mexico. That is the sort of person you want in government. A tough man, literally and physically.
Thank you so much. Spot on, Marcus, says Chris. Holly says, nice to see Marcus, the man who speaks sense. I'll give some more comments afterwards. That's Marcus Papadopoulos, who speaks his mind, talks about the extent of the challenge facing Donald Trump. In my opinion, Marcus is right. Have your opinion. Go to thepulse.today. Coming up in the next hour, we'll be speaking to Stan Robinson over in Wales on related issues. And also Brian Catt, an environmental guru, will be joining us to really deconstruct COP29. Mark Morano started there. He is there. Brian Catt brings up the rear. All of that with me, Liberate, here on the Pulse.today. See you in a minute.